Hola, ¿qué tal? Buen día. Bienvenidos al Congreso Automotriz Clauto. Mi nombre es Miriam Galván, coordinadora del Comité de Excelencia Operativa, y es un gusto para mí presentar al director de Calidad de Productos y Servicios, Scott Gray, de AIAG. Durante esta sesión, Scott Gray, representante de AIAG en la IATF, brindará información sobre los problemas emergentes de la industria y sus impactos en el diseño e implementación de un sistema de gestión de calidad automotriz efectivo. Scott abordará los problemas actuales, como la auditoría virtual, la evaluación y el desarrollo de competencias de una fuerza laboral remota y los beneficios potenciales de la automatización, de los controles de proceso y las herramientas de calidad. A continuación, les presento una breve semblanza de Scott.
Scott Gray, director de Productos y Servicios de Calidad en AIAG. Anteriormente ocupó puestos de liderazgo de calidad en Eaton Corporation, Frudenberg-Knock, Borg-Warner, Automotive y el negocio de electrónica industrial y automotriz de Motorola. Scott comenzó su carrera en la división Buick Motor de General Motors, licenciado en Ingeniería Industrial por el Instituto General Motors en Michigan.
Good afternoon. I'm glad you were able to attend today's event. My session is titled Challenges and Countermeasures for Today's Automotive QMS. The good news is whether you're in automotive, aerospace, appliance, or any other manufacturing industry, the issues are the same and the recommendations are applicable. So let's get right to it. My presentation will identify three major challenges for today's automotive QMS. These challenges are virtual quality management system auditing, developing competencies in a remote workforce, and leveraging Quality 4.0 technologies for process control improvement. I'll wrap up with some conclusions and next steps guidance at the end. The first challenge is virtual QMS auditing. To start off with, I'd like to dispel some of the issues at either ends of the spectrum. Some people believe that now that businesses are returning to face-to-face operations, there will be no virtual auditing. We do not see the industry moving this way. Because of the financial benefits of virtual auditing, we believe this will be a part of your QMS structure going forward. Also, we realize that there's travel restrictions, not only due to the employees and the company's budget and travel restrictions, but as well as the national travel restrictions, in many cases still unclear and not lifted. We know that many of our workforce are and will remain in a remote location. They will not be coming all back to the office 100%. So this makes us believe that, again, remote and virtual auditing will be a part of our model going forward. In addition, now both customers and suppliers are asking you as an organization to support their plans for virtual auditing. So as a supply chain partner, we believe you absolutely must develop competency in virtual auditing. Now, talking with my peers in the industry, there are also some who believe that we should shift all quality auditing to virtual auditing. Again, we do not see this as being a viable alternative. The first and the most significant issue that the IATF is dealing with is the intellectual property protection of audits on your manufacturing floor. This is really the biggest challenge for any of us in the supply base or at the OEMs, is auditing the manufacturing floor. If you've been on the floor as many times as I have, you'll know that there are always things in a corner that you would see on, if you were walking the floor, you might not see in a virtual audit. Further, we know, and I will talk more about there are some IATF and certification body limitations currently to going 100% towards virtual auditing. The IATF is not ready to move to 100% virtual auditing, and I'll talk more about that in an upcoming slide. Your management team may not be fully comfortable with remote and virtual auditing. So there's really the how comfortable is your team, how comfortable is your company, what type of technology solutions and equipment do you have available to implement this? And finally, there are also some customer and supplier limitations. And again, this goes back to our intellectual property protection. Flying a drone down somebody's manufacturing line is probably not going to be a viable option. Again, you could try it internally, but probably not with your customers or suppliers. But again, they're willing to take steps towards implementing some type of virtual auditing. And again, my recommendation here is you should expect to be utilizing some type of virtual QMS auditing in your near future. So now that I've kind of taken care of the two extremes, I'll talk a little bit more about where I think things are going to end up, which is somewhere in the middle. It's really about what does the IATF allow, what does ISO allow, and what will your organization support? So to answer the first question on what does the IATF allow, there is a formal document called the IATF Global Waivers and Measures in response to the coronavirus pandemic, and it's currently at revision 6. So that includes what you are allowed to do and what you're not allowed to do during an IATF audit. ISO also has some documentation that your certification or the ISO website has about your ISO audit. But from my experience, one of the biggest questions is really what will your organization support? Both financially and from a confidence level in the audit standpoint. Let me highlight a couple of things from the latest version of the Global Waivers and Measures document, and that specifically has to do with what the IATF calls a blended audit approach. I think you should get used to that term. I believe that is the QMS audit of the future, is a blended audit. So conceptually, they would operate as if they were all on site, and the audit team leader must be on site, but all of the audit team doesn't have to be on site. All of your audit team doesn't have to be on site. And so even other facilities and processes can be audited remotely. The other FAQ that was released was about the team carryover on the subsequent audit. And the IATF also here provided some flexibility in that the audit team can carry over as you go from a remote audit into the subsequent recertification audit. So the Global Waivers and Measures document is available at the IATF Global Oversight website or the IAOB.org website, and look there for information and ongoing updates. From my perspective, if you think about virtual QMS auditing, kind of at the low end, the minimum expectation is you should be experimenting with virtual QMS auditing in your internal audits. Some of your remote sites or auditing your remote workforce. Implement it to the extent your company will allow. The key part here from your QMS is to ensure that you are bringing your findings from those experiments into your management review. Your plans for future virtual QMS auditing should be documented in your management review meeting minutes. That way, when the auditor comes in, you have some cover for the leadership team. Let me go this far, but not any farther. And then that you can use that cycle as the checkpoint in your Plan, Do, Check, Act for virtual QMS auditing. At the next, what I call the performing level of development, you would implement with your customer and suppliers and their audits in addition to your internal audits to the extent that that's allowed by your customers and suppliers. Again, from a planning for quality standpoint, look at investing resources in developing these capabilities and competencies, and that should be in your strategic quality plan and budget. At the highest level of leveraging virtual QMS, then you would be doing as much virtual QMS auditing as the IATF or ISO allows. You certainly have to have conversations with your certification body to see if they're ready to support as far as you want to go with virtual auditing. The key part about virtual auditing or really any changes to your quality management system is that you need to validate that there aren't any impacts on your efficiency and effectiveness. So if you start implementing virtual audits, but then you find out shortly thereafter that you've had some serious escapes, well, you and your leadership team need to make an assessment and make sure that the virtual auditing didn't have anything to do with leading to escapes. So definitely close the loop on your performance, make sure that it's only having a positive impact on your QMS efficiency and effectiveness. Now, as we go to the second challenge, actually very related, and that's competency development in a remote workforce. So again, I think I can dispel some concerns at either end of the spectrum. Again, now that we're thinking about going back to the office time frame, we've had a lot of questions from the supply base on, are you going to go back to 100% face-to-face training, or is the industry going to stay with all virtual training and remote testing? We at AIAG do not see that this will be, again, a flip-flop. We're not going to go from all face-to-face, then to virtual, and then back to 100% face-to-face. Most companies have found that there are some good benefits to virtual training and remote testing, especially for awareness and some basic knowledge kind of training. A little bit more of a challenge when you get into the actual skill demonstration, but there are methodologies out there that can be implemented. Virtual training and remote testing does have some costs, but it does save a lot of money relative to flying your workforce across the country for training, all the attendant expenses in hotels and restaurant expense reports, all that type of stuff. So we have a lot of feedback from our customers that it's kind of application specific. This virtual training, remote testing may be the way to go for parts of your training portfolio in the future. And again, my perspective is that this is really a conversation that you as a quality leader need to have with your leadership team. What is their confidence level in virtual training and remote proctoring? If you know AIG, we have done mostly face-to-face training in the past. And so the implementation of virtual training and remote proctoring put us in a very much a test mode the last 2 years. We've tested out remote proctoring especially, and we feel it's a very robust for basic technical training and validation. I mean, you trust your workforce, so you trust them to be understanding that we're trying to assess your awareness and your knowledge of this material, so that cheating in a remote proctored situation doesn't help them or the company at all. So we believe that there's a lot of application for virtual training and remote proctoring, all the way up to the technical certification in our core tools material and third-party auditor training. Now the IATF is not yet 100% comfortable with the remote proctoring for third-party certification of auditors, but anything less than that, then we believe you should consider very confidently the capabilities of remote proctoring. Also, at the other side, we do not see the return to 100% face-to-face training and testing ever happening again. From a financial viability, it's just too expensive. We believe travel, if not constrained by budget, will be constrained by your organization, just to what kind of risks are we putting people into by flying them across the country and putting them into rooms full of people and for a training scenario. Again, most of our feedback is that the effectiveness of virtual training is very robust. So for the most part, there are very little concerns you should have. And we find employees really like the ability to do this training without having to totally disrupt their personal life for a week and go off someplace and do training in 5-day kind of an environment. That lets them, we focus the training, and then again, the testing can be in a subsequent session. They're still home. Their personal lives are not upset as much. So again, we don't see either one of those two extremes happening. What we believe in the middle ground is really a portfolio of what's available and where is your leadership on the confidence level in the remote proctoring. With those two things and your budget, then you can make a mix and match decision about remote training and testing. And we think that's where the majority of companies will end up. Again, at the operating level, at least utilize available standard assessments to baseline your employee knowledge and skills, but take advantage of some free e-learning YouTube videos that are out there. I'll talk about those in just a second. At the performing level, you should certainly trial different training providers and platforms and select the one that fits best with your organizational needs. Whether that's Zoom or WebEx or Teams, we are not as specific on the platform, but more about what are your needs and can we deliver on those needs in that platform. But again, at the minimum, you should think about implementing options for self-paced e-learning and remote development for your remote employees. Again, at the highest end, it would be great if you had data in your management review that made the comparison between face-to-face and virtual, and you could assess with data the competency, effectiveness, just as good in either mode. And then, again, at the business case level, at the future state level, we believe a ongoing mix of virtual e-learning, and if you're going to go to a classroom environment, likely that would be reserved for cross-functional work style training. So APQP training for a cross-functional team, problem-solving training for a cross-functional team. Those are the environments that we think that face-to-face training might still be used. And two of the tools, again, you might want to take advantage of. These are both free, and so that's usually a good thing for your budget. But take a look at the AIAG Core Tools Self-Assessment. It is a common global assessment. We do have it available in multiple languages. It's free to anybody in the industry. You don't have to be an AIAG member. And so with that, you could compare the scores of your quality professionals across departments, business units, regions, and for Mexico, we're working a lot with the clusters in Mexico, and we have that analysis already broken out by cluster. I would mention that additional deeper analytics are available to AIAG members. The other tool to take advantage of, I think, for this audience especially, is the IAOB SMMT IATF YouTube audit videos. They explain and explore a number of audit-related topics. They're free, they're short. You could have your employees watch that video and then facilitate a discussion afterwards, I think is a good like awareness type of an exercise. And go to the IAOB.org website under resources to find those videos. So again, we believe to build these free tools into your portfolio of competency development is the right way to go. And finally, the third challenge everyone has is leveraging Quality 4.0 technologies to improve your process control methodologies. Now, I've put in a couple of definitions here just to try to get us grounded. Quality 4.0 is a term that references the future of quality and organizational excellence within the context of Industry 4.0. Industry 4.0 is that digital innovations and impacting the transformation of quality methods and manufacturing methods in your organization. The key here is that quality needs to be at the table as a peer participating. These are things you need to be in the upfront part of planning, not waiting till afterwards. So some of the things that are relevant in the Quality 4.0 might be the industrial Internet of Things, connection of all the sensors and material movement equipment on your manufacturing floor. Of course, now if you're going to connect all those things, you're going to have a lot of data. So you've got all the big data and the artificial intelligence kind of analytics. One of the other areas AIAG has been active in the past few years is model-based enterprise, model-based development, which gets us to digital simulations and a digital replication of your product. The term is called a digital twin. Of course, there's additive manufacturing or 3D printing. Many robots out in the manufacturing floor, as well as the use of augmented reality, whether that's in training content or in operator work instructions and operator guided activities on the floor. Finally, with all of these connections of all the shop floor to the internet, one of the biggest challenges is cybersecurity. And so I'll dig into a few of these in more detail on the next slides. One of the biggest areas is really to leverage the technologies to improve your effectiveness of your quality management system. I think a lot of pressure will come to, we can do this faster, makes it more efficient. Really the challenge for you as quality leaders is to focus on the effectiveness part. Can we use these digital tools to improve the effectiveness of our quality management system? And so 3 opportunities I would want to explore with you today are using the industrial Internet of Things and big data analytics on your traceability system. Leveraging the simulation and the digital twin of your product in your PPAP development, and understand the ramifications of all the challenges in a connected manufacturing floor so that you can meet the requirements of the new IATF sanctioned interpretation on cybersecurity. I'll go into each one of these in more detail. So relative to traceability, it's not really about how much data you can collect, but can you correctly utilize the connected error proofing and sensors and process control devices on your floor to enable faster identification and segregation of any non-conforming or suspect product? And can you put your hands quickly and easily on accurate, defendable traceability data in order to meet the response time requirements that are out there for customer and regulatory inquiries related to field failures? So again, the idea here is within the traceability expectations of your customers, the challenge is around bookending a problem. So the challenge is not how much data you have, but can you dig into that data to come up with finer and finer bookends around any potential problem? The case study in our CQI 28 traceability guideline has to do with a tier 2 situation in which the tier 2 supplier shipped 50 non-conforming parts to their tier 1 customer. Those 50 tier 2 parts ended up being spread across 5,000 assemblies at the tier 1 level. And when those got shipped to the customer, the OEM, they ended up getting spread across 50,000 vehicles. So the OEM customer had to recall 50,000 vehicles in order to find 50 bad parts. Now, you can imagine the expense of that, but then you as a consumer, that's you got to take your car into the dealership, but they can't find anything wrong. That frustration and lack of loyalty that comes with those kind of problems. So really the key in leveraging Quality 4.0 is how small can you make those subgroupings of parts that you can go and find. So instead of having a lot code cover an entire day, what if you change out a sub-level component and you put in a new box of screws halfway through the day? Can your traceability system find that endpoint so that you could grab the first 500 parts that use that new box of screws rather than have to go grab the whole day's worth of production? The second item has to do with PPAP. Again, the use case we've explored in prior quality summits, where because you now have a model of your product, you basically have a digital twin. And it was proven, we've seen examples where you can take the connected inspection, measuring, and test equipment. It could be your coordinate measuring machine or some specialized piece of test equipment. You can put the model in and pull the data directly from that equipment so that you can confirm your product. You can validate the prototype control plan and FMEA that was used to develop those products, and you can produce the PPAP dimensional report without having to transcribe measurement data from the operator of the coordinate measuring machine to somebody else putting together the PPAP package to the final report that goes to your customer. So you can save both time and efficiency there, but really the point is to ensure that you eliminate data transcription errors and you can not miss any dimensions that were supposed to be measured and have a very confident data package by using that combination of the digital twin and connected measuring equipment. The third challenge here, and it's been an increasing challenge, is to keep up with the cybersecurity threats that happen in a connected manufacturing floor. The IATF has just released in June a new set of sanctioned interpretations relative to cybersecurity. It's important that you as the quality professional share this information with your IT, manufacturing, and leadership so that there can be a formal plan in your quality strategy and something that might be auditable in your next quality audit. The sanction interpretation requires now a formal risk analysis. How much of a risk is this to our facility and our organization? You need to implement the necessary employee awareness and competency testing. We know that social engineering is a major focus of people trying to attack your systems. So they actually get information from the employees rather than trying to hack your equipment. Obviously, you have to do the protections to your equipment and systems, whether that's in your engineering center, your manufacturing shop, or your warehouse. All of those would need to be protected. But the sanction interpretation also now clearly spells out a need for periodic, what's typically called penetration or ping testing. You have to try to test your system to see if it's robust enough against the standard and typical types of attacks. You can do this internally or you can outsource it. It's a good place to look for extra capabilities or awareness here is looking for outside cyber resources to help your team. So definitely focus on those three issues when you're approaching your Quality 4.0 strategies. And so in conclusion, I think it's important for you as quality leaders to address challenges proactively. When you take on a challenge proactively, you can experiment, you can validate, and therefore make sure with data that you're not negatively impacting your QMS. Conduct trials, and again, review those results and discuss those and make plans formally in your management reviews. And finally, I would say, as an organization, it's absolutely critical you engage with both your customer, your supplier, and your certification body on these topics to see if there's collective work that can be done, or for sure to validate any potential impacts on your quality performance. And so with that, the conclusion of my presentation. Thank you very much for your time.
Scott, fue un verdadero gusto tener esta charla contigo. Gracias por haber compartido conocimiento con nosotros. Permíteme entregarte de manera digital este reconocimiento a nombre del Clúster Automotriz de Guanajuato, que dice así. El Clúster Automotriz de Guanajuato hace entrega del siguiente reconocimiento a Scott A. Gray por su valiosa participación en la conferencia Challenge and Countermeasures for Today's Automotive Quality Management Systems, dentro de la agenda del Congreso Automotriz Clauto. Este reconocimiento lo firman Rolando Alanís, presidente del Clúster Automotriz de Guanajuato, y Alfredo Arzola, director general del Clúster Automotriz de Guanajuato. Thank you so much, Scott, for this information.